The air inside the tribunal chamber was heavy, thick with tension and the faint hum of alien technology. The room itself was circular, its walls made of polished black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. High above, a domed ceiling glowed softly with veins of bioluminescent energy, casting an eerie blue-green hue over everything below. Rows of benches lined the edges of the chamber, filled with colonists who had come to witness the trial. Some whispered nervously to one another. Others sat stiffly, their faces pale with unease. At the center of the room stood a young woman named Lily Harper. Her hands were bound by glowing energy chains that pulsed faintly as if alive. She wore torn clothing smeared with dirt and dried blood, evidence of the struggle that had led to her capture. Her face bore bruises, one cheek swollen, her lip split, but she held herself upright, refusing to show weakness. Her dark eyes scanned the crowd, then settled on the 5 figures seated at the raised dais before her. 3 of the judges were human, dressed in formal robes that marked them as members of the colony's governing council. To the right sat Daniel Carter, a tall man with sharp features and piercing gray eyes. His expression was cold, almost predatory, as he studied Lily. Beside him was Maria Lopez, a middle-aged woman with kinder eyes but a weary demeanor. She leaned forward slightly, studying Lily with something akin to curiosity. The third human judge, Alan Briggs, was older, his face lined with years of hard decisions. He looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with the papers in front of him. On the left side of the dais sat 2 representatives of the Valith, the native species of Zithrus-9. They were unlike anything most humans had ever seen. Tall and slender, they resembled giant insects with translucent wings that shimmered faintly even in the dim light. Their bodies were covered in chitinous armor, segmented and gleaming like polished metal. Large, multifaceted eyes dominated their faces, giving them an otherworldly appearance. They communicated silently through subtle movements, stilts of their heads, flickers of their antennae that only those familiar with their culture could interpret. Lily ignored the murmurs around her as the trial began. A guard stepped forward, reading aloud the charges against her in a monotone voice. Lily Harper, you stand accused of leading a violent uprising against both human settlers and the Valith people. You are charged with orchestrating attacks on multiple settlements, resulting in numerous deaths and widespread destruction. How do you plead? For a long moment, Lily said nothing. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Finally, she lifted her chin and spoke, her voice steady despite the weight of the chains around her wrists. I won't answer to these lies. Her words sent a ripple through the crowd. Some gasped in outrage. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel Carter leaned forward, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. You deny your involvement? We have witnesses, evidence, surveillance footage showing you leading raids. Do you expect us to believe this is all some grand conspiracy? Lily didn't flinch. Believe what you want, she said simply. But I know the truth, and so do you. Carter's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Maria Lopez interjected. Her tone was softer, more measured. Miss Harper, we're here to get to the bottom of this. If there's more to the story, now's the time to tell it. Lily glanced at Maria, her gaze lingering for a moment longer than necessary. There was something different about this woman, something less hostile, less rehearsed. For the first time since entering the chamber, Lily allowed herself a flicker of hope. But she kept her mouth shut, unwilling to reveal too much too soon. As the proceedings continued, evidence was presented against her. Grainy video clips showed a figure matching Lily's description directing groups of armed individuals. Witnesses took the stand, recounting tales of chaos and terror. One man, a farmer named Greg Owens, described how his village had been attacked without warning. They came in the night, he said, his voice trembling, burned everything, killed anyone who tried to fight back. And she, he pointed directly at Lily, was leading them. Each accusation landed like a blow, but Lily remained impassive. She knew the truth wasn't so simple. Many of the events attributed to her had happened while she was elsewhere, fighting to protect innocent lives from the real culprits. Yet proving her innocence would be nearly impossible. Whoever had framed her had done a thorough job. Outside, the tribunal tension simmered among the colonists. The rebellion had divided them deeply. Some viewed Lily as a monster, a symbol of everything wrong with humanity's expansion into space. Others saw her as a hero, someone willing to stand up to the powerful corporations that controlled the colony. Among the latter group was Ryan Mitchell, former friend of Lily's who had once fought alongside her. Ryan paced anxiously outside the tribunal building, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. He had known Lily for years, trusted her implicitly. The idea that she could commit such atrocities didn't sit right with him. Determined to uncover the truth, he slipped away from the crowd and headed toward the colony's restricted archives. Security guards patrolled the area, but Ryan had spent enough time working maintenance jobs to know the layout well. He ducked into a service corridor, avoiding detection, and made his way to a locked door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Using a stolen access card, Ryan slipped inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with rows of filing cabinets and computer terminals. He moved quickly, searching for anything related to the rebellion or Lily's arrest. After several tense minutes, he found what he was looking for, a folder labeled Operation Black Veil. Inside were documents detailing secret experiments conducted by the tribunal, experiments involving the Veilith. Ryan's heart raced as he read through the files. It appeared that the tribunal had been experimenting on the Veilith, attempting to harness their hive mind for military purposes. The rebellion had been sparked not by rogue extremists, but by a deliberate provocation designed to justify further aggression against the native species. Worse still, documents implicated Daniel Carter himself in orchestrating the entire scheme. Armed with this new information, Ryan hurried back toward the tribunal. He arrived just in time to hear Lily deliver her final statement before the judges. "You think I'm guilty because it suits your narrative?" she said, her voice ringing out clearly. "But ask yourselves who benefits most from this chaos?" The room fell silent. Even Carter seemed momentarily stunned by her words. Maria Lopez exchanged a glance with the Veilith representatives, her brow furrowed in thought. For the first time, cracks began to form in the tribunal's united front. As the session adjourned for a recess, Lily was escorted back to her holding cell. Though outwardly calm, her mind raced with possibilities. She knew the odds were stacked against her, but she also knew she wasn't alone. Somewhere out there, allies were working to expose the truth. All she had to do was hold on a little longer, and somewhere deep within her, a tiny spark ignited the first hint of the power she carried unknowingly inside her. Power that would soon change everything. The recess began, and the tribunal chamber emptied slowly. Spectators filed out, murmuring among themselves about what they had just witnessed. Some were convinced of Lily Harper's guilt, pointing to the evidence as irrefutable proof of her crimes. Others weren't so sure. Her words during the trial, her challenge to the judges, had planted seeds of doubt in their minds. Maria Lopez lingered behind, flipping through the documents on her desk. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Pieces didn't quite fit together. Why would someone like Lily, who had no known history of violence or extremism, suddenly lead such a brutal uprising? And why did Daniel Carter seem so determined to push for a quick conviction? Maria glanced at Carter, who was deep in conversation with Alan Briggs. His tone was sharp, almost frantic, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. Meanwhile, outside the tribunal building, Ryan Mitchell paced nervously. He clutched the stolen folder containing classified documents about Operation Black Veil tightly under his arm. His mind raced as he tried to process what he had read. It was worse than he'd imagined.
Act of the rebellion.
The rebellion hadn't been an act of random aggression. It had been carefully orchestrated by the very people now sitting in judgment of Lily. Ryan knew he had to share this information, but he also knew it wouldn't be easy. If he went public too soon, he risked being silenced or worse. Ryan decided to wait until after the trial resumed. For now, he needed to stay close to the tribunal and watch for any opportunity to act. I slipped back into the crowd gathering near the entrance, keeping an eye on the guards stationed around the building. His heart pounded as he caught sight of one of them glancing suspiciously in his direction. Ryan forced himself to breathe steadily, pretending to check his communicator. When the guard looked away, Ryan exhaled quietly and moved further into the throng. Back inside, Lily sat alone in her holding cell. The room was small and windowless, lit only by a faint blue light emanating from the walls. The energy chains, binding her wrists, hummed softly, reminding her constantly of her captivity. Despite the discomfort, Lily remained calm. She closed her eyes and focused on her breathing, trying to steady her thoughts. She knew she couldn't afford to lose control. When so much depended on her staying strong, her mind drifted back to the events leading up to her arrest. Memories flooded in, fragmented and chaotic. She remembered standing amidst burning ruins, shouting orders to protect fleeing civilians. She remembered watching helplessly as soldiers gunned down innocent people in cold blood. And she remembered the moment she realized she was being set up, a trap laid by forces far more powerful than she could have anticipated. But none of those memories held answers, only questions. Who was truly behind all of this? And why? Lily opened her eyes and stared at the wall in front of her. Something felt different. Subtle vibrations coursed through her body, originating from the glowing chains around her wrists. At first, she thought it was just another trick meant to intimidate her, but then she noticed something strange. The chains weren't just restraining her, they were interacting with her somehow. Tiny pulses of energy traveled along her arms, spreading throughout her body. It was unsettling, yet oddly familiar, as if her own cells recognized the sensation. Before she could dwell on it further, the door to her cell slid open. 2 guards entered, their weapons trained on her. "Time to go," one of them said gruffly. Lily stood without protest, allowing them to escort her back to the tribunal chamber. As they walked, she focused on maintaining her composure. Even as the strange energy continued to course through her veins, when Lily re-entered the chamber, the atmosphere had shifted. The crowd seemed quieter, more subdued. Even the judges appeared uneasy. Maria Lopez looked directly at Lily as she took her seat, her expression thoughtful. Daniel Carter, on the other hand, avoided meeting her gaze altogether. Instead, he shuffled, papers on his desk, his movements jerky and agitated. The trial resumed, and the prosecution called its final witness, a scientist named Dr. Laura Bennett. Dressed in a crisp white lab coat, Bennett stepped confidently to the stand. She explained that she had analyzed data recovered from the sites of several attacks attributed to Lily. According to her findings, advanced technology had been used to disable security systems and coordinate assaults with precision timing. This level of sophistication suggests careful planning and execution, Bennett concluded. 8. It's unlikely the work of amateurs. Carter leaned forward eagerly. "And can you identify who might possess such technology?" he asked. Bennett hesitated for a moment before answering. "Based on our analysis, the tech bears similarities to experimental prototypes developed by Ternan factions within the colony." She glanced nervously at Carter, then quickly added, "But I must emphasize, this is purely speculative." Lily listened intently, her mind working furiously. The mention of experimental prototypes confirmed what Ryan had discovered in the archives. This wasn't just about framing hurt, was part of a larger scheme, involving cutting-edge technology designed to manipulate the Valith. She clenched her fists, feeling the energy chains pulse stronger in response. As Bennett stepped down from the stand, Lily rose to her feet. The guards tensed, ready to restrain her if necessary, but she ignored them. "You want to talk about technology?" she said, addressing the judges. Her voice was calm, but firm. "Then let's talk about the real experiments happening here, the ones involving the Valith." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Carter slammed his fist on the table. "Enough," he barked. "You're grasping at straws, Harper. Stick to the facts." But Lily pressed on. "Ask your scientists about Project Hivelink," she said, locking eyes with Maria Lopez. "Ask them why they've been experimenting on the Valith. Ask them how many lives have been destroyed to further their agenda." For a moment, silence filled the chamber, and Maria spoke up, her tone measured but probing. "Miss Harper, Do you have evidence to support these claims? I don't need evidence, Lily replied, because you already know it's true. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The Valeth representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their antennae twitching rapidly. Whatever. They were communicating silently. It was clear they were disturbed by what Lily had said. Carter tried to regain control of the situation. This is absurd, he snapped. We're here to determine whether Lily Harper is guilty of treason and murder, not to indulge baseless accusations. But the damage was done. Doubt had taken root, spreading like wildfire among the spectators. People whispered to each other, questioning everything they had been told. Even Alan Briggs looked troubled, his usual stoic demeanor cracking under the weight of uncertainty. Outside the tribunal, Ryan watched the proceedings unfold on a live feed displayed on a large screen. He clenched the folder tighter, knowing the time had come to act. Pushing through the crowd, he approached a group of reporters gathered near the entrance. Listen to me, he said urgently. I have proof that Lily Harper is innocent and that the tribunal has been lying to us all. The reporters turned to him, skeptical but intrigued. One of them, a young woman named Emma, stepped forward. What kind of proof? She asked. Ryan hesitated, then pulled out the documents. This, he said, holding them up. Operation Black Veil. It's all here. Emma scanned the pages quickly, her eyes widening. If this is real, she began trailing off. Get out. Another word, she signaled to her cameraman and turned back to Ryan. Tell us everything. As Ryan began explaining what he had uncovered, chaos erupted inside the tribunal. The Valeth representatives suddenly rose from their seats, their wings flaring dramatically.
Ow.
They emitted a series of high-pitched clicks and whistles, causing everyone in the room to freeze. Lily winced as the vibrations from her chains intensified, resonating with the sounds coming from the Valeth. For a brief moment, she felt a strange connection, a flicker of understanding that passed between her and the insectoid beings. What's happening? Carter demanded, his voice tinged with panic. No one answered. The Valeth turned and exited the chamber, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Lily watched them go, her heart pounding. She didn't fully understand what had just occurred, but she knew one thing for certain: the game had changed, and she intended to play her next move wisely. The departure of the Valeth representatives left the tribunal chamber in stunned silence. The judges exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to proceed. Daniel Carter leaned back in his seat, his face pale, but his jaw clenched tightly. Wiped sweat from his brow, while Maria Lopez stared at the empty space where the Valeth had stood moments before. Lily Harper remained still, her eyes fixed on the door through which they had exited. She could feel the energy chains around her wrists pulsing stronger than ever, as if reacting to something unseen. Outside the tribunal, Ryan Mitchell's revelations were causing a stir. Reporters gathered around him, peppering him with questions as Emma recorded every word. What does this mean for the trial? One asked. Is the tribunal involved in illegal experiments? Another pressed. Ryan held up the documents again, pointing to specific sections. This proves that the rebellion wasn't random, he explained. It was a setup, a deliberate provocation designed to justify war against the Valeth. Emma turned to her cameraman and whispered urgently, We need to get this broadcast immediately. Within minutes, snippets of Ryan's claims began airing on colony-wide news feeds. Crowds outside the tribunal grew restless, murmuring angrily as the truth started to sink in. Some shouted accusations at the guard station nearby, demanding answers. Others simply looked lost, struggling to reconcile what they believed with what they were now hearing. Back inside the chamber, the tension escalated. Carter banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. This is a mockery of justice, shouted over the rising din. These baseless accusations will not derail this trial. But Maria Lopez raised a hand, silencing him. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed the room. If there's even a chance these allegations are true, we have a responsibility to investigate further. Justice cannot be served without transparency. Carter's face reddened with fury. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could speak, alarms blared throughout the building. Red warning lights flashed overhead, casting an ominous glow over the chamber. Gasps erupted from the crowd as automated voices announced, "Intruder alert." All personnel evacuate immediately. Panic spread like wildfire. Spectators bolted for the exits, shoving past one another in their haste to escape. Guards scrambled to secure the area, shouting conflicting orders. Amid the chaos, Lily stood rooted to the spot, her senses on high alert. The energy chains around her wrists pulsed violently, sending waves of heat coursing through her body. She gritted her teeth against the pain, focusing on staying upright. "What's going on?" Maria demanded, gripping the edge of her desk. Carter didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed a communicator and barked commands into it. Outside, distant explosions rocked the ground, shaking the walls of the tribunal. Through the windows, plumes of smoke rose into the sky, accompanied by the unmistakable hum of Valith drones descending upon the colony. "The Queen has retaliated." One of the remaining human guards muttered under his breath. "They're attacking." Lily closed her eyes briefly, trying to make sense of the sensations flooding her body. The energy chains weren't just restraining her, they were linking her to something vast and alien. Flashes of images flickered in her mind, towering. Insectoid figures moving in perfect synchronization. Glowing tunnels beneath the planet's surface, and a massive bioluminescent creature radiating power. It took her a moment to realize what she was seeing: the Valith hive mind. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The nanotech embedded in her system wasn't just experimental tech designed to restrain her. It was a bridge, connecting her consciousness to the Valith. Someone, perhaps Carter himself, had intended to use her as a weapon against them. But now, the tables had turned. The implant was giving her access to their thoughts, their emotions, their memories. As the tribunal descended further into chaos, Lily acted. With a sudden surge of strength fueled by the nanotech, she yanked her arms apart, snapping the energy chains like brittle twine. Sparks flew as the remnants fell to the floor, leaving faint burns on her skin. The guards nearest her froze, stunned by her unexpected display of power. "Stay back," one of them shouted, raising his weapon. But Lily ignored him, stepping forward with purpose. She locked eyes with Carter, who had gone deathly pale. "I wanted to control me," she said, her voice low and steady. "Now you'll answer for what you've done." Carter backed away, stammering incoherently. Maria Lopez watched the scene unfold, her expression a mix of shock and awe. "Lily, what are you doing?" she asked cautiously. "I'm finding out the truth," Lily replied. Then, without another word, she turned and sprinted toward the exit, weaving through the panicked crowd. The guards hesitated, unsure whether to pursue her or focus on the escalating crisis outside. By the time they made up their minds, she was already gone. Outside, the colony was in disarray. Swarms of Valith drones filled the air, firing bursts of energy at buildings and vehicles. Civilians ran for cover, screaming in terror. Fires raged unchecked, casting thick clouds of smoke into the sky. In the distance, the unmistakable roar of artillery echoed as human forces attempted to mount a defense. Lily moved quickly, dodging debris and avoiding confrontations. She knew where she needed to go: the Valith hive. If she could reach the Queen, she might be able to stop the attack. But getting there wouldn't be easy. The tunnels leading to the hive were deep underground, guarded by countless drones and warriors. And even if she managed to navigate the labyrinth, there was no guarantee the Queen would listen to her. Ryan spotted Lily as she darted through the streets. Heading toward the outskirts of the colony, he called out to her, waving frantically. When she saw him, she slowed down, allowing him to catch up. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her tone sharp despite their shared history. "I came to help," Ryan replied, holding up the folder containing the classified documents. "I figured you'd need proof when you confronted the Valith." Lily hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Fine, but stay close and don't slow me down." Together they made their way to the edge of the settlement, where the ground sloped downward into jagged ravines. The entrance to the Valith tunnels lay hidden within one of these crevices, protected by natural formations and layers of camouflage. As they approached, Lily felt the connection to the hive mind growing stronger. Her body tingled with anticipation, as though the nanotech was urging her onward. A group of Valith warriors emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. Their segmented bodies gleamed menacingly in the dim light, and their wings buzzed softly as they prepared to strike. Ryan instinctively stepped back, raising his hands in surrender. But Lily held her ground, meeting the warrior's multifaceted eyes without flinching. "I need to speak with your queen," she said aloud, knowing somehow that they would understand. To her surprise, the warriors paused, tilting their heads as if considering her request. After a tense moment, one of them stepped aside, gesturing for her to follow. "This is insane," Ryan whispered, as they descended into the tunnels. "Do you really think they'll let us live long enough to talk?" "They don't have a choice," Lily replied grimly. "If we fail, everyone dies." The journey through the hive was harrowing. The tunnels twisted and turned unpredictably, lit only by faint bioluminescent veins running along the walls. Strange sounds echoed around them, clicks, whistles, and low hums that seemed to resonate in their bones. At every turn, they encountered more Valeth, some watching silently, others barring their way until Lily's presence convinced them to stand down. Finally, they reached the heart of the hive, a cavernous chamber dominated by a colossal figure, suspended in a shimmering cocoon of light. The queen. Her exoskeleton gleamed with iridescent hues, and her antennae twitched rhythmically, as if sensing their approach. Surrounding her were dozens of warrior drones, their weapons trained on the intruders. Lily stepped forward, ignoring the danger. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice echoing in the vast space, "I know you believe all humans are enemies, but I'm here to show you the truth." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the queen lowered herself from her perch, her massive form casting an imposing shadow over them. She extended one clawed limb, touching Lily's forehead gently. A jolt of energy surged through her, and suddenly, her mind was flooded with the queen's thoughts, memories of betrayal, fear, and loss. Through the connection, Lily showed the queen everything she had learned: the experiments, the lies, the manipulation orchestrated by Carter and his allies. She shared her own experiences, proving that not all humans were complicit in the atrocities committed against the Valeth. For several agonizing minutes they communicated silently, exchanging truths too profound for words. When the connection finally broke, the queen regarded Lily with newfound respect. "You carry our essence within you," she said, her voice resonating deeply in Lily's mind. "Prove your worth, and perhaps peace can still be achieved." Lily nodded, understanding the weight of the queen's words. Outside, the battle raged on, but within the hive, a fragile hope had taken root. The queen's words hung heavy in the cavernous chamber, echoing softly as if the hive itself was holding its breath. Lily stood motionless, her body trembling slightly from the intensity of the connection she had just shared with the Valeth. Ruler. The weight of what the queen had asked of her pressed down on her chest like an invisible force. Prove her worth, those three simple words, carried a burden far greater than any physical chains could impose. Ryan watched silently from the shadows, his face pale but resolute. He had followed Lily this far, trusting her instincts even when everything seemed hopeless. Now, standing in the presence of the Valeth Queen, he felt utterly insignificant. The sheer size and power of the creature before them made it clear that their lives were in her hands, and hers alone. One wrong move, one misstep, and they would be nothing more than another casualty in the war brewing above ground. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice calm despite the storm raging inside her, "I can't undo what's been done. But I can show you why humanity deserves a second chance. Not all of us are like the ones who hurt your people." The queen tilted her massive head, her multifaceted eyes glinting faintly in the dim light. Her antennae twitched rhythmically as if processing Lily's words. Then, without warning, she extended one clawed limb toward Ryan. He flinched instinctively, but the queen stopped short, merely gesturing for him to step forward. "Bring the truth," she said, her voice resonating in both their minds. It wasn't a request, it was a command. Ryan hesitated, then stepped cautiously into the open space between Lily and the queen. He held up the folder containing the classified documents about Operation Blackveil. "This proves what they've done," he said, his voice shaking slightly. They've been experimenting on your kind, using you as tools for their own gain. And they've lied to everyone, humans and Valeth alike, to cover it up. The queen studied him intently, her gaze piercing through him as though she could see every secret buried within his soul. After a long moment, she reached out again, this time taking the folder gently between two of her claws. She examined the papers inside, her movements slow and deliberate. Though Ryan couldn't understand how she processed the information, it was clear that she grasped the gravity of what she was seeing. When she finished, the queen let out a low, rumbling sound, a noise that sent shivers down both their spines. "Humans lie easily," she said finally. "But you do not carry the scent of deceit. You may speak further." Encouraged by her response, Lily pressed on. "Your Majesty, we didn't come here just to expose the lies. We came because we believe there's still hope for both our peoples. If we work together, we can stop them. We can end this cycle of violence before it destroys us all." The queen remained silent, her expression unreadable. For several tense moments, the only sounds in the chamber were the faint hum of bioluminescent veins glowing along the walls and the distant echoes of battle raging above. Outside, explosions continued to rock the colony, a grim reminder of the stakes involved. Finally, the queen spoke again. "Hope is fragile," she said. "It dies quickly under the weight of betrayal. Why should I trust you when so many of your kind have proven unworthy?" Lily swallowed hard, knowing the answer wouldn't be easy. "Because I'm willing to sacrifice everything to make things right," she replied. "If that means staying here with you to prove my loyalty, to show you that humans can change, then I'll do it." Her words caught Ryan off guard. "What are you saying?" he whispered urgently, stepping closer to her. "You can't stay here. They need you out there." Lily shook her head, her eyes filled with determination. "This isn't about me anymore. Psst. If I leave now, the fighting will continue. Find another excuse to destroy each other. But if I stay, if I become part of the hive, they'll have no choice but to listen." Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but the look in Lily's eyes silenced him. He realized she had already made up her mind. This wasn't just about stopping the war. It was about bridging the gap between two species who had been pitted against each other for far too long. The queen considered Lily's offer carefully. Her massive form shifted slightly, the shimmering cocoon of light surrounding her flickering. "Faintly, to merge with the hive is no small thing," she said. "It requires giving up much of yourself. You prepared for such a loss?" "I don't care what I lose," Lily answered firmly, "long as it brings peace." For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she raised one claw and touched Lily's forehead once more. A surge of energy coursed through her body, stronger and more intense than anything she had experienced before. Images flashed in her mind, memories of the Valeth's ancient history, their struggles, their triumphs. She felt their pain, their resilience, their hope, and amidst it all, she felt something else, acceptance. "You will become one with us," the queen declared. "But no, this you cannot return to your former life. Once the bond is complete, it cannot be undone." Lily nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I understand." Ryan stepped forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "There has to be another way. You don't have to give up everything." "It's the only way," Lily replied softly. "Trust me, Ryan. This is bigger than either of us." Before he could respond, the queen signaled to her warriors, who moved to escort Ryan out of the chamber. He resisted at first, reaching out to grab Lily's arm, but she gently pulled away. "Go," she told him. "Tell them what happened. Here, make sure they don't forget." Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes, but he forced himself to nod. As the warriors led him away, he glanced back one last time, committing Lily's face to memory. Then he disappeared into the twisting tunnels, leaving her alone with the queen. Once Ryan was gone, the queen turned her full attention to Lily. "Prepare yourself," she said. "The process begins now." Lily closed her eyes, bracing herself for whatever was to come. Around her, the chamber grew brighter as the bioluminescent veins pulsed with increasing intensity. The air seemed to vibrate with energy, filling the space with a low, rhythmic hum. Slowly, tendrils of light began to extend from the walls, wrapping around Lily's body like threads of silk. At first, the sensation was warm and soothing, but soon it became overwhelming, as if her very essence was being unraveled and rewoven into something new. Through the haze of pain and confusion, Lily clung to one thought: this was her choice. She had walked into the trial in chains, accused of crimes she hadn't committed. She was walking deeper into the unknown, not as a prisoner, but as a bridge between two worlds. Whatever happened next, she knew she had done the right thing. Above ground, the battle raged on, oblivious to the quiet revolution taking place beneath the surface. Ryan emerged from the tunnels, clutching the classified documents tightly in his hands. His heart ached with the knowledge that he might never see Lily again. But he also felt a spark of hope, a belief that her sacrifice wouldn't be in vain, as he made his way back to the colony. Dodging drones and avoiding patrols, he vowed to honor her decision. He would expose the truth no matter the cost. And he would fight to ensure that Lily's vision of Peace One, where humans and Valeth could coexist, would someday become a reality. Little did he know, the hardest battles were yet to come. Ryan stumbled out of the tunnels, his legs weak and his mind racing. The colony above was in chaos. Fires raged unchecked. Buildings crumbled under the assault of Valeth drones, and panicked screams filled the air. Smoke choked the sky, turning the daylight into an eerie twilight. Soldiers ran in every direction, firing wildly at the alien attackers, while civilians scrambled for shelter. Ryan ducked behind a pile of rubble, catching his breath and trying to gather his thoughts. He clutched the folder containing the classified documents tightly in one hand, its edges damp with sweat. These papers were the key to everything, the proof that could expose Carter's lies, end the war, and honor Lily's sacrifice. But getting them to the right people wouldn't be easy. The colony was falling apart around him, and trust was in short supply. Peering cautiously from his hiding spot, Ryan spotted a group of human soldiers huddled near a damaged barricade. They were shouting orders at each other, their faces streaked with soot and desperation. One of them noticed Ryan crouching nearby and raised their weapon. "Who goes there?" the soldier barked. "It's me, Ryan Mitchell," called back, raising his hand slowly. "I've got information about the rebellion and the Valeth attack. You need to hear this." The soldiers exchanged wary glances before lowering their weapons slightly. "What kind of information?" another asked skeptically. Ryan hesitated, then held up the folder. Proof that the rebellion wasn't random. It was a setup, a provocation, orchestrated by Daniel Carter and others on the tribunal. They wanted war with the Valeth. The soldiers looked at each other again, uncertainty written across their faces. Finally, one of them stepped forward. "You'd better come with us," he said gruffly. "We'll take you to Commander Hayes. If what you're saying is true, she'll want to know." Commander Jennifer Hayes was stationed in what remained of the colony's central command center. The building had taken heavy damage during the initial wave of attacks, but it still functioned as the heart of the human defense effort. Inside, officers shouted orders over crackling communication systems. While technicians worked frantically to coordinate counterattacks, the scene was tense and chaotic, yet there was a sense of grim determination in the air. When Ryan entered, flanked by the soldiers who had escorted him, Hayes immediately turned her sharp gaze toward him. She was a tall woman with piercing blue eyes and an authoritative presence that demanded respect. Her uniform was torn and stained, but she carried herself with unwavering resolve. "What is this about?" Hayes demanded, her tone clipped. Ryan handed her the folder without hesitation. "These are classified documents detailing Operation Black Veil," he explained. "It's all here, the experiments on the Valeth, the manipulation of events leading to the rebellion, and the plan to provoke a full-scale war. Daniel Carter is behind it all." Hayes flipped through the pages quickly, her expression darkening with each passing moment. When she reached the end, she slammed the folder shut and let out a low growl of frustration. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath. Then, looking up at Ryan, she asked, "Where did you get these?" "I found them in the restricted archives," Ryan admitted. "But more importantly, I spoke with Lily Harper. She's inside the Valeth Hive right now, trying to negotiate peace." Hayes stared at him, her brow furrowing deeply. "Negotiate? How?" She's using some kind of connection they forced on her, Ryan replied. A nanotech implant or something. She's willing to stay with them to merge with their hive mind, if it means stopping the fighting. For a long moment, Hayes didn't respond. She glanced down at the folder again, then back at Ryan. If this is true, she began, trailing off as she considered the implications. This changes everything. Before she could say more, an explosion rocked the building, sending debris raining down from the ceiling. Alarms blared louder than ever, and shouts erupted from outside. A technician rushed over, panic in their voice. Commander, the Valeth have breached Sector 7. We're losing ground fast. Hayes clenched her fists, visibly torn between continuing the fight and pursuing a different course of action. After a few tense seconds, she made her decision. Turning to her second-in-command, she ordered, "Reinforce Sector 7. Hold the line as long as you can. I need time." "Yes, ma'am." The officer replied, hurrying away to carry out the order. Hayes turned back to Ryan. "Take me to where you last saw Harper," she said firmly. "If she's really negotiating with the Valeth, we might still have a chance to salvage this mess." The journey to the hive entrance was perilous. Fires lit up the horizon, casting flickering shadows across the landscape. Drones buzzed overhead, occasionally strafing the area with bursts of energy. Ryan and Hayes moved cautiously, sticking to cover whenever possible. Along the way, they encountered small groups of survivors, some armed, some not all, struggling to stay alive. One such group included Emma, the reporter who had helped broadcast Ryan's earlier revelations. She recognized him immediately and hurried over, her camera dangling from her neck. "Ryan, what's happening? Is it true about Carter? About the tribunal?" "It's true," Ryan confirmed, "and we're trying to stop it. Come with us if you want to help." Emma nodded eagerly, falling into step beside them. Together, the trio pressed onward, navigating the treacherous terrain until they reached the ravine leading to the hive tunnels. As they approached, a squad of Valeth warriors emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. Their segmented bodies gleamed menacingly in the dim light, and their wings buzzed softly as they prepared to strike. Hayes instinctively reached for her weapon, but Ryan raised a hand to stop her. "Wait," he pleaded. "We're not here to fight. We need to speak with your queen." The warriors tilted their heads, antennae twitching rapidly as if communicating silently. After a tense moment, one of them stepped aside, gesturing for them to follow. Inside the tunnels, the atmosphere was unsettling. Strange sounds echoed around them, clicks, whistles, and low hums that seemed to resonate in their bones. At every turn, they encountered more Valeth, some watching silently, others barring their way until Ryan's calm demeanor convinced them to stand down. Finally, they reached the heart of the hive, the cavernous chamber where Lily had stood just hours earlier. The queen awaited them, her massive form suspended in a shimmering cocoon of light. Surrounding her were dozens of warrior drones, their weapons trained on the intruders. Hayes stepped forward boldly, addressing the queen directly. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice steady despite the danger. "We've come to offer a truce. Humanity doesn't want war, not all of us anyway. Let us prove that." The queen studied her intently, her multifaceted eyes glinting faintly in the dim light. Then, without warning, she extended one clawed limb toward Ryan. He flinched instinctively, but the queen stopped short, merely gesturing for him to step forward. "Show me," she commanded, voice resonating deeply in their minds. Ryan obeyed, holding up the folder once more. "This proves what they've done," he said. "They've lied to both our peoples, but we can change that, together." The queen examined the documents carefully, her movements slow and deliberate. When she finished, she let out a low, rumbling sound of noise that sent shivers down everyone's spines. "Hope is fragile," she said finally, "but perhaps worth preserving." With that, the queen signaled for her warriors to lower their weapons. For the first time since the battle began, there was a glimmer of hope in the air, a fragile, tentative promise of peace. Above ground, the tide of the conflict began to shift. Word spread quickly among the human forces that negotiations were underway. Though skirmishes continued sporadically, many soldiers began standing down, awaiting further instructions. Meanwhile, Valeth drones withdrew gradually, retreating back toward the hive. In the days that followed, an uneasy ceasefire took hold. The colony began the slow process of rebuilding, even as investigations into Carter and his allies intensified. Evidence mounted against them, exposing the depth of their corruption and betrayal. Arrests were made, trials held. Justice at least attempted. Lily remained within the hive, her consciousness now intertwined with the Valeth collective. She had sacrificed her freedom, her identity, to forge a fragile alliance between two species teetering on the brink of annihilation. And though she would never return to the world she once knew, her legacy endured. Ryan often thought about her, wondering if she was truly at peace. Whenever doubt crept in, he reminded himself of her courage, her selflessness. She had walked into the trial in chains, accused of crimes she hadn't committed, and when it was all said and done, she had walked out carrying the weight of countless lives, including those of the very beings who had sentenced her. Her story became a symbol of redemption, of unity forged from ashes. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy. But it was enough for now. The ceasefire held, fragile but steady, as humanity and the Valeth began the painstaking process of rebuilding trust.
Wow.
The colony was a shadow of its former self. Stone-stained buildings stood like skeletal remains. Streets were littered with debris, and survivors wandered aimlessly, searching for meaning in the aftermath of destruction. Yet amidst the ruins, there was a quiet determination. People worked tirelessly to restore what had been lost, driven by the hope that this time things would be different. Commander Jennifer Hayes took charge of the recovery efforts, her leadership, unwavering despite the challenges. She organized teams to clear rubble, repair infrastructure, and provide medical care to the injured. At the same time, she spearheaded an investigation into Daniel Carter and his co-conspirators, ensuring that no stone was left unturned. Arrest warrants were issued, evidence presented, and trials conducted swiftly but fairly. The tribunal itself was disbanded, placed by a new governing council that included representatives from both humans and the Valeth. Carter's trial became a focal point for the colony. News of his crimes spread quickly, igniting outrage among settlers who had once blindly trusted him. During the proceedings, Ryan Mitchell testified against him, recounting everything he had uncovered about Operation Black Veil. Emma. The reporter broadcast the trial live, ensuring transparency and accountability. When the verdict came down, guilty. On all charges, the courtroom erupted in cheers. For many, it felt like closure, a step toward justice long overdue. But while some celebrated, others mourned. The cost of the rebellion and the subsequent war had been devastating. Entire families had been torn apart, homes destroyed, lives shattered. No amount of rebuilding could erase the scars left behind. And yet, even in their grief, people found solace in the knowledge that someone had fought for them. Someone had risked everything to expose the truth. That someone was Lily Harper, though she was physically absent. Lily's presence loomed large over the colony. Her sacrifice had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that change was possible even in the darkest of times. Stories of her bravery spread like wildfire, passed from person to person until they became legend. Some claimed she had single-handedly brokered peace with the Valeth. Others whispered that she had merged completely with their hive mind, becoming something more than human. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. Lily had given up everything to protect those she cared about. Ryan often thought about her, especially late at night when the silence pressed in around him. He would sit alone in his quarters, staring at the folder containing the classified documents that had started it all. Those papers were now part of the public record, proof of humanity's darkest impulses and its capacity for redemption. But to Ryan, they represented something else, a promise kept, a promise to Lily that her sacrifice wouldn't be forgotten. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the colony, Ryan decided to visit the edge of the ravine where the Valeth tunnels began. It had become a sort of memorial site, marked by makeshift shrines left by grateful settlers. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes adorned the rocky ledge, each one bearing messages of gratitude or prayers for peace. Standing there, Ryan felt A strange mix of emotions: sadness for what had been lost, pride in what had been achieved, guilt for surviving when so many hadn't. He knelt down and placed a small stone at the base of the shrine, whispering softly, "Thank you, Lily. We'll keep fighting for the world you wanted." As he turned to leave, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. Turning back, he saw a lone Valith warrior standing at the mouth of the tunnel. Its segmented body gleamed faintly in the fading light, and its wings shimmered like liquid glass. For a moment Ryan froze, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Then, slowly, the creature stepped forward, holding something in its clawed hand. It was a skull, one of several arranged neatly in a row. The sight sent a chill down Ryan's spine. But before he could react, the Valith tilted its head, antennae twitching rhythmically. In that instant, Ryan understood. These weren't trophies of conquest, they were symbols of accountability. Each skull represented someone responsible for the atrocities committed against the Valith, someone whose actions had nearly doomed both species. Among the skulls, Ryan recognized Daniel Carter's distinctive features. His jaw tightened, but he forced himself to nod in acknowledgement. "We won't let this happen again," he said aloud, knowing the Valith would understand. "We'll build something better." The warrior hesitated, then reached out and gently placed a glowing orb into Ryan's hands. It pulsed softly, radiating warmth and light. Though he couldn't explain how, Ryan knew it was a gift from Lily, through the nanotech implant. She had forged a connection not just with the Valith, but with humanity itself. This orb was proof that she lived on, her spirit intertwined with both worlds. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes as he clutched the orb tightly. "I'll make sure everyone knows," he whispered, "what you did. It matters." With that, the Valith warrior retreated into the shadows of the tunnel, disappearing without another sound. Ryan stood there for a long time, watching the entrance until it blended seamlessly with the darkness. Then, clutching the orb close to his chest, he turned and walked back toward the colony. In the weeks and months that followed, life began to stabilize. New alliances formed between humans and the Valith, built on mutual respect and shared goals. Joint efforts focused on healing the planet's damaged ecosystems, restoring resources depleted by years of exploitation, and fostering understanding between the two species. Schools introduced lessons about the rebellion and the war, teaching future generations the importance of cooperation and accountability. Lily's story became a cornerstone of these teachings. Statues were erected in her honor, murals painted on walls depicting her defiant stand against corruption. Songs were written about her courage, sung during gatherings and ceremonies. Though she was no longer physically present, her legacy endured, a beacon of hope guiding humanity toward a brighter future. Ryan played a key role in preserving her memory, using the glowing orb as inspiration. He founded an organization dedicated to promoting peace and unity between humans and the Valith. Named Harper's Light in her honor, the group worked tirelessly to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. They provided education, facilitated dialogue, supported initiatives aimed at bridging cultural divides. Emma continued documenting the changes, capturing moments of progress and resilience through her camera lens. Her reports reached audiences far beyond the colony, inspiring other settlements to adopt similar practices. Slowly but surely, the ripple effects of Lily's sacrifice spread outward, touching lives across the galaxy and deep within the Valith. Hive Lily remained connected to the collective consciousness. Though her individual identity had faded, her essence persisted, a thread woven into the tapestry of the hive mind. Through her, the Valith gained a deeper understanding of humanity's complexities, while humans learned to see the Valith not as enemies, but as partners in survival. On quiet nights, when the colony slept and the stars shone brightly overhead, Ryan would hold the glowing orb close and imagine Lily looking down on them. He pictured her smiling, proud of what they had accomplished together, and though he missed her deeply, he found comfort in knowing that her spirit lived on, not just in the stories told or the statues erected, but in the hearts of everyone who believed in a better tomorrow. She had walked into the trial in chains, accused of crimes she hadn't committed. She had faced judgment, betrayal, and unimaginable pain. But when it was all said and done, she had walked out carrying the weight of countless lives, including those of the very beings who had sentenced her. And in doing so, she had changed the course of history forever.